Now we want to talk about what is anxiety. You know, if you suffer with it, you can have all kinds of different explanations of what anxiety is, right? It's physiological, it's emotional, right? We can feel it, we can sense it. But let's get into some maybe more of the technical things where we can know, exactly what we're dealing with here. Anxiety is a term that covers a great deal of psychological ground. For example, we might feel anxious, right, when we have an exam. You know, there's healthy anxiety. We don't want to get rid of all anxiety. If you have an exam coming, you need something to prod you along, and anxiety does that. Hey, you better start studying. That test is coming. Well, that's a healthy anxiety. You go to cross the street and you feel a little anxious because you hear a lot of traffic. You want to be a little anxious, right? You want to be able to look both ways before you cross the street. Now, where anxiety gets overboard is if you come to that street and there's a truck, you know, an eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile down, and you feel too afraid to cross the street. Now that's the amygdala, and we'll get into the brain in a little while. That's that part of the brain that's oversensitized. And a lot of our anxiety is due to an oversensitized limbic area. The emotion, the thermostat, if you will, is set too high. And part of what we're going to learn today is to reset the thermostat, if you will. And anxiety has been more and more prevalent than ever before. Even before COVID hit, we were anxious. But with the onset of a pandemic, worldwide pandemic, and isolation that we all hit, a lot of us came out of it with a lot more anxiety. Anxiety is a massive problem. According to Tim Newman in Medical News, he said anxiety seems to rampaging through the society like a non-contagious cognitive plague, forming a low-level hum that hides in the corners of our collective minds. The Anxiety Depression Association of America website records an onset of more and more anxiety. It says anxiety disorders now are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting over 40 million people. And that's those that have been diagnosed, not including those that haven't come in for help. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable, and yet close to 40% of the people suffering never receive treatment. They never get the treatment that they need. The State of Mental Health in America was a report in the early 20s, and it talked about the mental health, and it was saying even before COVID, there was a prevalence of people experiencing mental illness. And suicidal ideation was increasing. A number of people looking for help in anxiety skyrocketed. The number of people screening for moderate to severe symptoms of depression and anxiety continued to increase. And then more people are reporting frequent thoughts about suicide and self-harm than ever before. So we're on the verge of an epidemic here. And so we need to, treat this and work with it. And so I'm so glad you're here today. I'm so glad that you're part of this, because I know it can get better. I know that you can work with your anxiety. And I encourage you, if you haven't seen your doctor, you should. Talk to your doctor, see if they want to help, and take some of the stuff you learned today. And if you need a therapist, get a therapist. Get someone to help you. Don't do this alone. But I hope that today you'll be able to get the help that you need through the seminar and then through other sources. We'll talk more about that as we go through the seminar. Anxiety comes in many different forms. There's, first of all, the generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, right? And that's what they call someone that's having anxiety all the time. When I was younger, I would have probably been diagnosed with that because it was an everyday occurrence. I was hypervigilant. It was like there was a predator in the room. Yes, I was functional, but I had this anxiety going on a lot. It wasn't due to a specific thing that I could put my finger on, but it was all the time. And that affects, quite a few people. And And so if that's the case, there's hope. There's hope for you today. That can, as we learn about how to recognize it, then regulate it, and as we relearn some of the things that are bothering us, we'll be able to stop that every day. I remember when that hum that was going on, I was like a gas pedal on at the same time with the brake. That I remember when that stopped. And it was after I did some work on myself that we're going to be teaching you in this seminar today. Then there's panic disorder. Now, I know I've had panic attacks, they call it. I wish there was a better word for that, but it does feel somewhat like an attack. It's this feeling of, sudden feeling of terror when there's really no real danger. It comes out of nowhere, feel like, you're going to have a heart attack or something's wrong, I'm dying, I don't know what's going, the adrenaline is pumping. And we'll talk about panic attacks today and how we can overcome it. And I've helped a lot of people with panic attacks, including myself. And quickly what it is that we say, oh, I'm having a panic attack. It's faulty wiring. I don't have to listen to this. And we shift, we distract ourselves. But I'll get into that more later. But panic attacks are common. And once you've had one, it's easy to have another, because it really does cripple us there for a while with fear. But we can overcome that. You can overcome that. So if that's something you're bringing today, rest assured that we can help with that, okay? Then there's social anxiety disorder. Now that affects like 15 million people in the country, so it's a large one. And that's where someone's afraid to be in social contexts. And I believe a lot of these things come out of this distorted view of ourselves, and we're going to talk a lot about that. These distorted views that make us anxious, and we don't have this growth mindset where we're willing to experiment and step out and try. Instead, we're almost crippled with this anxiety. What are others thinking about me? What's going to happen if they don't like me? My form came in the sense of people pleasing. And so I always wondered, what do people think? What are they going to do? What are they going to say? And sometimes I would feel like not going into public, not meeting with people. Some people are just deathly afraid and they won't go. And so it can help when you're meeting new people. It happens when you're dating perhaps, or a job interview, when you have a test. I remember it kicked in when I had test, anxiety. And so we can work with this, but knowing it is half the battle. Knowing that that's what you're suffering with and how we can attack it is going to help you overcome it. And then there's specific phobias. I know what phobias are. For whatever reason, I had an elevator phobia. I was able to overcome it, yet the longer I stay away from elevators, I have to work up again into the same kind of thought pattern I had before in order to get on it. Phobias are hard and difficult to work with, but you can overcome it. And there's a lot that we can do with the systematic desensitization, coming back and learning some of the things where it first happened and how we're different now. So there are ways that we can work with phobias. And then there's obsessive compulsive disorder, and OCD affects 2 million people. Phobias, by the way, affects 19 million people. It was the largest. And so we're able to work with that. And then even OCD behavior. A lot of what we teach in our emotional relearning is similar to what Jeffrey Schwartz created when he worked with OCD. And Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz has some of the best stuff out there on OCD behavior. And so if that's something you've been diagnosed with or suffer with, we can help. We can help. And you'll learn a lot during the seminar today, and that you can apply to OCD. Again, it comes from that oversensitized amygdala, faulty wiring. It's a false alarm. I don't have to listen to it. You're going to hear me repeat that many times today. And I hope that it will sink in and that you'll start to really believe it. And then there's post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of what we write, what I've written in this program is based on that. I worked in addictions. I worked with a lot of people that have post-traumatic stress disorder. And our whole emotional relearning theory that I created many years ago is based on a post-traumatic stress model, if you will, that the things that we reacted to in the past are affecting our present. And so we'll talk more about that as we go through this.